fellow Planeswalkers, I'm James, and today we are going to go through one of my favorite new brews that I've brewed up, Kroxa Titan of Hunger's... Well, I messed up the title. It's Kroxa's Titan of Death's Hunger. This is a Rakdos discard list that I've been putting together for a while now. It was a mono red deck that was Turgrid, but people found it to be really unfun to play against. So what I did was I turned it into a Kroxa deck. It's a little faster than Turgrid. It's a little bit more my play style. So we're going to go through it today. I'm going to show you guys what it does and how it works. So Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger is a Rakdos commander. It is 1 black and a red for a 6/6 legendary creature, Elder Giant, that says when Kroxa enters battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever Kroxa enters battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life, and it has escape, black, red, and exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. Not really wanting to keep Kroxa on the field too much, as there are ways to abuse him coming in and out of the battlefield. From the command zone, we have probably one of the most easiest land bases in this deck. It is mainly just like you see here, 11 mountains, 17 swamps, a couple of dual lands like Luxury Suite. Command Tower is a must in any color that's running more than one. Any deck that's running more than one color. Bloodstained Mire, just because I had one in my collection that I wanted to use. It is the Rakdos fetch land. I guess I could have also put the other fetch land in here that gets swamps or mountains, but I didn't think I needed that many like shuffle effects. We have Blood Crypt here. It shouldn't be the Secret Lair version, as I don't own that version. Anyway, how do we ramp in this deck? We're going to ramp through a couple of ways. We've got mainly artifact ramp because we are in black and we are in red. So Arcane Signet's the first one here. It's the 2 mana, taps for any one color of your mana's color's identity. We also have Mana Crypt. It's the 0 drop, taps for 2. It's just the better Soul Ring, I guess, but deals damage to you. We also have Soul Ring in the deck, as well as Talisman of Indulgence. It is a 2 mana artifact that taps for colorless, or you can tap to add Rakdos to your mana pool. It also deals 1 damage to you. So that's pretty much how we're going to ramp in this deck. Not really a lot of ramp, as you can see. The average CMC of this deck is 2.63, so it is kind of on the lower side, but it is not the lowest that I've ever built. Najila was about 1.6 something, or 1.8, I believe she was. She was really low to the ground, and I loved it. All right, cool. So let's go through this deck. How do we draw cards? We're going to draw cards by also discarding cards. So we have Burning Inquiry here. It is the 1 mana sorcery. Each player draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at random. We have Cathartic Reunion, 1 and a red for a sorcery that says an additional cost to cast this spell, discard 2 cards, and then draw 3 cards. We also have Faithless Looting. That's going to let you draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, and also has flashback for 2 and a red, so you can play it twice. It's fantastic. We also have, I guess, Wheel of Misfortunes, also a way to draw cards in this deck. Basically, it is a 2 and a red for a sorcery that says each player secretly chooses a number 0 or greater, then all players reveal those numbers simultaneously and determine the highest and lowest numbers revealed this way. Wheel of Misfortune deals damage equal to the highest number to each player who chose that number. Each player who didn't choose the lowest number discards their hand, then draws 7. So you kind of really want to force your opponents to be discarding the cards, but if you need to wheel, you just kind of try to get the lowest. I mean, you just, pick 0, I guess. You're always wheeling yourself. And then we have instant ways to draw cards in the deck, as well as we have... I guess Thrill of Possibility is another way to draw cards in the deck. So it's 1 and a red for an instant that says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you discard a card and you draw 2. So it's a way to get up on card advantage. We also have Village Rites. It is 1 black for an instant that says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. We have a lot of cards in this deck that want to be sacrificed. A lot of creatures in the deck that want to be sacrificed, I should say. And what are they? Let's go through them now, shall we? So we have Archfiend of Ifnir. It is 3 and 2 black for a 5/4 creature demon with flying that says whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. and has cycling for 2. So, I mean, if you really just need to draw a card, this is a fantastic card to do that with, but you can also kind of stop your opponents from doing any kind of token strategy or anything, or any kind of value creature that's less than 1 power. Sorry, 1 power or more, because, I mean, you know, if it has, less toughness. If it has 1 or more toughness, I mean, you can cycle a butt ton of cards in this deck as well. Oh, and we also have Geth's Grimoire for drawing cards. There's a 4-mana artifact that says whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you may draw a card. So you could be drawing a lot of cards off this, especially if you kind of put this with Wheel of Misfortune. Now, I know if you were to do a kind of non-budgety version for this deck, and if you had a Wheel of Fortune, it would be fantastic in this deck. But currently don't have a Wheel of Fortune, hence why I have Wheel of Misfortune, which I still think is kind of a fun little political card to play. We have Asylum Visitor. It is 1 and a black for a 3/1 vampire wizard that says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Also has Madness for 1 and a black. So it's a really good card just to discard. Get it for the Madness cost, because you can basically discard it for free with any ways of discarding in this deck and then playing it. We have Cunning Lethiomancer. It is 2 and a black for a 2/2 human wizard that says at the beginning of your upkeep, each player discards a card. Fantastic. Another way to draw cards is Dark Confidant. 1 and a black for a 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life to its equal to its converted mana cost. Dockside Extortionist for a giant ramp, usually playing in not really high, but like competitively high magic, I guess, is our play group at the current. So this is 1 and a black for a 1/2 Goblin Pirate that says when Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. We have Fell Spectre. A little bit more on the expensive side for a discard outlet, but it's a 3 and a black for a 1/3 Spectre with flying that says when Fell Spectre enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card, but also says when an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. We have Magus of the Moon, just a little bit of a Staxy hate piece in the deck. As you can tell, most of our lands are basics, just to kind of really not really hose our opponents, but kind of just slow them down and make sure that, you know, people like to run very greedy, non-basic land mana bases, especially in our play group. So I felt Magus of the Moon was a really good include in this deck because, like I said, I've got 17 swamps, 11 mountains, and everything else can just, if it just taps for a mountain, I'm cool with that. We have Magus of the Wheel. It is 2 and a red for a human wizard, 3/3 with an activated ability of 1 and a red and tap. Sacrifice Magus of the Wheel. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Not as good as Wheel of Fortune, I know that, but another just cheaply way to get the same effect. Yes, it's a little slower. Yes, you could be running haste effects in the deck if you really wanted to. I couldn't find a place to really squeeze that in, as I wanted a little bit more removal and a little bit more kind of discardy group slug cards, which we'll get to very shortly after we finish the creatures. So we have Mind Slicer. It is 2 and 2 black for a 4/3 horror that says when Mind Slicer is put into a graveyard from play, each player discards his or her hand. This is a fantastic target for Village Rites because you can sacrifice it, you then discard your whole hand, everyone discards their hand, and then you draw 2 cards. So that means you are up 2 cards to the rest of the table. You can then do whatever you want after that. If one of those cards is Dark Deal, which is another discard effect in the deck, you can kind of just make yourself draw more cards if you need to, or after Village Rites, you can then Faithless Looting and kind of like, discard those 2 and get 2 new cards, or you can kind of get what you need to when you need it in the deck. We also have Neheb Dreadlord Champion. This is 2 and 2 red for a 5/4 legendary creature, zombie, minotaur, warrior. I don't think they could have fit any more words on that type line at all. It has Trample and says whenever Neheb Dreadlord Champion deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw that many cards and add that much red mana to your mana pool until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Fantastic way to get stuff in the bin, fantastic way to also draw more cards, and also a fantastic way to add more red mana to your mana pool if you need it to then cast more of those cards. We are a bit on the black side heavy in the deck, but we still need a lot of red pips, which we'll go through at the end, kind of show you the breakdown of between black and red cards that we have. We also have Opposition Agent. It is 2 and a black for a 3/2 human rogue with flash that says you control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile any card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. You may pay mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. We also have Plague Crafter. It is 2 and a black for a 3/2 human shaman that says when Plague Crafter enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. So you're kind of getting best of both worlds in this deck. You want people to have no creatures on the field. You also want to be able to discard cards out of their hand. And for 3 mana, this does it fantastically. We have Rankle, Master of Pranks. So it is 2 and 2 black for a 3/3 fairy rogue that has haste and flying. And that says whenever Rankle, Master of Pranks deals combat damage to a player, choose any number, I guess, of like these modal effects. And we all know how much Paul loves modal effects. I also love them as well, just not as much as he does. So each player discards a card, each player loses 1 life and draws a card, and each player sacrifices a creature. This is everything we want to on, a 4 CMC creature that has haste and can get in straight away. It has flying, so it goes over a lot of people's decks. No real way to give this unblockable or any kind of evasion, really. But with that, we can, if your opponent has no cards in hand, we can make them draw a card and then discard it straight away, or they can discard a card. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it goes down in the line, so they would discard a card, then they would lose 1, draw 1, and then sacrifice a creature. But still, it does everything you want this deck to be doing, and it's fantastic. We also have Rotting Rats. It is 1 and a black for a zombie rat 1/1. That says when it ETBs, each player discards a card and has Unearth, which means you can basically pay its Unearth cost, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, so you can swing with it if you need to, but then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So after that, we have another really cool little card here. It is called Runehorn Hellkite. It is 5 and a red for a 5/5 dragon with flying. It's not in here because it's a big old beater. It's in here because it is a wheel from the graveyard. So it has an activated ability of 5 and a red, and exile Runehorn Hellkite from your graveyard. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7 cards. That's instant speed. Yes, it's 7 mana, but you're doing it from the graveyard. Again, at instant speed. I don't know how many times I can kind of say that. After that, we have Sangromancer. It is 2 and 2 black for a 3/3 vampire shaman with flying that says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. So again, you're going to be getting hit possibly more than what I expected to or what I want to be. So you kind of want to be able to control the field. And doing so with Sangromancer makes you gain more life than your opponents. And that's kind of the game of Commander, especially in if you don't want to die to, say, a lot of combat damage, you're going to be making him discard a whole butt ton of cards anyway, so why not gain some life for it? We have Sire of Insanity. It is 4 black and a red for a 6/4 demon that says at the beginning of each player's end step, each player discards his or her hand. No one's ever going to keep any cards in their hand in this deck whatsoever, and Sire of Insanity is a way of doing that. We also have Turgrid. So again, Turgrid was the helm of this deck, but I kind of switched out to being Rakdos. So Turgrid is the 3 black 4/5 legendary creature god with menace that says whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It also flips and is Turgrid's Lantern. It's neither here nor there for this deck, but it's basically a Torment of Hailfire on a permanent. We have Valki, God of Lies. It is 1 and a black for a 2/1 legendary god that says when Valki enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card they revealed this way until Valki leaves the battlefield. Has an activated ability of X and choose a creature card revealed with Valki with converted mana cost X. Valki becomes a copy of that card, but we're going to be playing it for the backside of it. So the backside is Tybalt's Cosmic Imposter. It is 5 black and a red for a 5 loyalty planeswalker that says, as Tybalt enters the battlefield, you get an emblem with you may play cards exiled with Tybalt Cosmic Imposter, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. It has 3 loyalty planeswalker activated abilities, I guess they are. Its first one is +1, exile the top card of each player's library, -3, exile target artifact or creature. And -8, exile all cards from all graveyards and add 3 red mana to your mana pool. This card's huge. This card's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait to play it and resolve it in a game. Then we have World Gorge Dragon. We're not going to worry about ever casting this card. It is a part of the WinCon combo in the deck, which I guess I'll go through right now because there's World Gorge Dragon. So it is 3 red for a 7/7 Nightmare Dragon with trample and flying. So I guess Frample. When World Gorge Dragon enters the battlefield, exile all other permanents you control. When World Gorge Dragon leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So if you pair World Gorge Dragon with a little enchantment I like to call Animate Dead. So Animate Dead is a 1 and a black enchantment that says enchant creature in a graveyard. When Animate Dead enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it loses enchant creature card on a graveyard and it gains enchant creature put onto the battlefield with Animate Dead. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach Animate Dead to it. When Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. The creature also gets -1/-0. So what this does is you have World Gorge Dragon in the graveyard. You then cast Animate Dead, targeting World Gorge Dragon. It then enters the battlefield, and because it enters the battlefield, it then exiles all other permanents you control. But before you exile all of your permanents, you tap and float your mana. You then exile all of your permanents, so your lands, enchantments, artifacts, and creatures, and that includes Animate Dead. And because Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, World Gorge Dragon then exiles itself. And because it gets exiled, because it leaves the battlefield because of Animate Dead having to sacrifice it, you can then bring all of your permanents back, including Animate Dead. You can then target your World Gorge Dragon from the graveyard, to which then its ETB goes on the stack for you to exile all the permanents. Because you exiled your lands, they come in untapped. You can tap them again. It then creates you infinite mana. And I guess with this deck, with infinite mana, you can then cast your commander infinite amount of times out of the graveyard to make your opponents discard their hands until they have no cards left in hand, to then they'll just be taking 3 life. So another really cool way to finish the game if you need to. It's not the main win con of the game, it is the backup win con. There are a couple of redundant cards in the deck that help that redundancy combo with Dance of the Dead, which basically does exactly the same thing as Animate Dead. But if you don't want to go for this combo, you can also just, get them with the group slug, which are a couple of really fun cards in here. Bloodchief Ascension. I've been looking for a place to play this card forever. It is a 1 mana enchantment that says at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. Now, Kroxa is a loss of life effect. It is not a damage effect. So it actually, you can have this on the field. You can then make people discard a non-land card. If they don't have a non-land card to discard, they then lose 3 life. You then get 3 counters on Bloodchief Ascension super quick. And then Bloodchief Ascension says, whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. So just another way to do incremental damage to people as well as gaining life yourself. I could have easily have added the Mind Crank combo in here as well. But I chose not to because I kind of wanted to go with the World Gorge Dragon Animate Dead combo, which, I want to play that interaction more than I want to play the Bloodchief Ascension interaction, because I've done that a couple of times and it's fun, it's good, but it's very hard to pull off in other decks. And this one here, it might end up in the deck. This is just the first iteration of the deck. Actually, no, this is the second iteration of the deck, sorry. So Court of Ambition is the next card. It is 2 and 2 black for an enchantment that says when Court of Ambition enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, which means that at the beginning of your end step, you then draw a card. So again, it's card advantage and it's just for you. unless you get hit and someone else takes a monarch off you, to which then you hit them back. But if they also have no creatures on field because you make them sacrifice them or you make them discard them, then you're just going to stay the monarch, and that's what you want. So at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the monarch instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So again, this works really well with Court of Ambition. With Bloodchief Ascension, because it is another loss of life effect. We also have Liliana's Caress. Liliana's Caress is a 1 and a black enchantment that says whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Again, works really well with Bloodchief Ascension, so we're going to be able to get this thing online really, really quickly, and that's what I love. We also have Megrim. Megrim is a 2 and a black for an enchantment that says whenever an opponent discards a card, Megrim deals 2 damage to that player. We have Raider's Wake, 3 and a black for an enchantment, again, that says whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. It has Raid, so that means at the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, target opponent discards a card. Not really going to want to try to get that Raid effect. If you do have a couple creatures on the field and you have opportunities to attack, definitely attack, because then you're going to be discarding cards, making them, lose more life, and slowly whittle them down to get to the point where you're going to win the game. We have Underworld Breach. This is just a fantastic way of getting cards out of the graveyard if we need them. If Gorge Dragon is in the graveyard, but so is Animate Dead, you can Underworld Breach it out and then start the combo and win the game. You can also just use this for straight value, because you're going to be having a lot of cards in your graveyard as well as a lot of cards in your opponent's graveyards. But if you're able to basically stack your graveyard and then escape things out for free and just get more value. If you need to tutor something, you can tutor something up really quickly if you can get, any number of your tutors out on the field. So Underworld Breach is a 1 and a red for an enchantment. This is each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana value plus 3 other cards from your graveyard. So you basically just exile 3 cards. If you want to be casting, Lotus Petal over and over and over and over and over again, you just have to pay the 0 because it's a 0-drop mana artifact, which is in the deck, by the way. Another way to ramp, sorry. And you just discard, you exile 3 cards out of your graveyard. No big deal. So no big deal on getting out your Lotus Petal if you need to. It also says at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. So it doesn't say around for more than 1 turn. You kind of do what you need to do, and this is one of those cards you want to play either for extreme value if you are behind or you need to get in front, or you just play it to essentially just win the game. We also have Waste Not. It is 1 and a black for an enchantment that says whenever an opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add black to your mana pool. And whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. So again, another way to just make value out of your opponents discarding their cards. All right, what else have we got in the deck here? We kind of got some counterspell magic, a little bit of removal. Let's go through that just really quickly now. We have Bedevil. It is black and a red for an instant that says destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. We also have Chaos Warp. Chaos Warp is 1 and a red for an instant that says the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Everyone knows Chaos Warp. It's a fantastic removal spell, especially in red. It's almost an auto-include in red, and I hate saying things are auto-includes, but if you're playing red, you pretty much want to be playing Chaos Warp as removal. We have Deadly Rollick. It is 3 and a black for an instant that says if you control your commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost, exile target creature. So we want to either be hard casting this, or we want to be able to escape Kroxa out of the graveyard so that we can play it for free. And in that same cycle of cards, we also have Deflecting Swat. So it is 2 and a red for an instant that says if you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. You may choose new targets for target spell or ability. We have Entomb, not really a removal, but it is a way to get World Gorge Dragon into the graveyard if you need to. We have Malaki Rebirth. It is a 1 mana instant that says choose target creature, you lose 2 life until end of turn. That creature gains when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. If you have this in hand and you have just played a Dockside Extortionist, you can then kind of find a way to either kill the dockside or get the dockside to die, or if it is going to be removed, you can throw the Malaki Rebirth on it, get it back, make more treasures, bada boom, bada bing, done. Or if you have, let's say you have Village Rites in hand and you have Malaki Rebirth in hand, you can Village Rites. Sorry, you can Village Rites, but you have to sacrifice it. So you'd have to play Malaki Rebirth on Dockside Extortionist, and then in response, you could then Village Rites it. That way, the Malaki goes off, and then the wheel goes, and then the Village Rites goes off. You sacrifice it, it comes back, you draw 2 cards, you make more mana, and hopefully you draw into something else really fantastic that you can just keep going into. We have Pyroblast. It is the counter target spell if it's blue, or destroy target permanent if it's blue. In that same vein, we also have red Elemental Blast. Pretty much does exactly the same thing. We have Rakdos Charm, so it is black and a red for an instant that has 3 different modes. If your opponents are getting way too ahead with tokens, because there are a lot of token strategies out there at the current with all the amazing new token commanders we have, this kind of just kills them on the spot. Because you can, at instant speed, each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. If you also need to destroy a target artifact, you can do that, or you can exile all cards from target player's graveyard. We have Soul Shatter. It is 2 and a black for an instant that says each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among creatures and planeswalkers they control. We have Terminate, just an amazing destroy targeted spot removal card in Rakdos. It is black and a red for an instant that says destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. And lastly, we have Vampiric Tutor. It's just a tutor. That's all it's going to do. It's going to go find you a piece that you need on the spot if you need it. Okay. So we have our ways of the discarding cards and everything else. And I want to bring up Library of Lang real quick, because it is a 1 mana artifact that says skip your discard phase. So it just says you basically have no max hand size. But whenever a spell or effect forces you to discard a card, you may instead discard that card to the top of your library. Which means if you're going to be discarding cards like you are in this deck a lot, you just kind of want to keep the cards, because it is a May ability. So you can just discard the cards you want to go to the graveyard, but then you can also discard the cards you want to go back on top of your library. And speaking of the top of your library, what's another good way of kind of getting those cards back? But that's Sensei's Divining Top. This is just a good way to kind of look through the top, kind of dig for what you need. And then probably some people are out there going, but James, you've got Bolas' Citadel. I do. Bolas' Citadel and Sensei's Divining Top is another infinite combo, because you're able to tap to draw a card. You can then put top back on top and then play it with Bolas' Citadel for as much as you have life. So you can kind of, if you need to, go all the way down to 1 or 2 life and then just, find the pieces that you need if you can draw into it or not. I mean, it's not really going to ever make you win the game. It's kind of just a quick way of getting through as much of your library as possible. We have Wishclaw Talisman as another tutor. It came out in Throne of Eldraine. I love this card. It doesn't see enough play in like slower Magic. It's more played in the higher competitive tier of Magic, only because of it gives your opponents a tutor as well. And sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, especially with Thoracle out there. If they get the chance to kind of, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation / Pact before you get to do your win here, then that's kind of a feels bad. But anyway, Wishclaw Talisman is a 1 and a black for an artifact that says Wishclaw Talisman enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. Has an activated ability of 1 and tap. Remove a wish counter from Wishclaw Talisman. Search your library for a card. Put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. So they can't instant speed tutor. We also have Gamble as another tutor. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then discard a card at random. I don't think we mentioned Feed the Swarm. It is another spot removal card that either destroys a enchantment or creature. Demonic Tutor is another tutor. Blasphemous Act as a board sweeper. If your opponent is, again, going crazy with tokens, you can just Blasphemous Act them. It's a 9 CMC spell, but usually only, cast it for 1 red. It's a sorcery because it costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield and deals 13 damage to each creature. And I don't think Liliana. How can I forget? She's sitting there all by herself. So lastly, we're going to go through Liliana, Waker of the Dead. This is another card that I wanted to find a spot to play because I pulled one out of an M21 Collector's Booster Pack way back in the day. It is 2 and 2 black for a 4 Loyalty Planeswalker that has 3 activated Loyalty Planeswalker abilities. The +1 is each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. So it's just another redundant effect of Kroxa. The -3 is target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Again, we're going to be having a lot of cards in our graveyard. So if you need to get rid of something super scary that isn't exactly the highest CMC, or people have ways to get around it, this just kind of makes you put -1/-1 counters on it. I was also thinking about Toxic Deluge for this deck as well. That might end up in the deck if I can take something else out, if I want to get rid of maybe some sack effects, or if I want to get rid of some targeted removal, for more sweepers. That could be another way of going around it. Her ultimate is -7. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. If you need to go for the swing plan, this one's going to give you the swing plan. And that's it. That is my Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger Rakdos discard deck. If you like this, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and a subscribe to the channel would be fantastic. Yeah, if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/commanderatarms. We have all of our social medias in the link below as well. And that's my dog just chilling out with me as I talk about this deck. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. And as usual, I'm James, and this has been the new episode of the Commander at Arms. Peace.
See ya.